And no, I've never worked at a team before. But I guess two things. One, a soccer team is a business like any other business. We have HR and legal and finance and all of those same functional areas. And two, the way that teams do make money are areas that I do have expertise in.
Welcome to Icons and Insights powered by C360, where the business of sports, technology, and broadcasting converge to create the immersive media economy. Now let's get into it with your hosts, Howard Wright and Cher Jones. Howard, today's episode has me incredibly excited. I feel like I say that all the time, but this one is all about staring imposter syndrome dead in the face and then literally flipping it the bird, because that is what is going on today with our guest. So tee me up, tell us about our guest today, because I can't wait to dive in.
So our guest today is Ishwara Glassman Chrein. And one of the things that I appreciate about her most is how she has gone in different verticals, in different big multinationals, and made her indelible mark each and every stop along the way. And she keeps rising as we speak. And so without further ado, Ishwara, welcome to Icons and Insights.
Thank you both for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Let me tell you right off the bat, I am so excited with your journey and everything that you've done. And we're going to get into that in just a second, because I think this is something specifically, I know women, we deal with imposter syndrome all the time, but I feel like you just defied imposter syndrome. Like, it's like, you don't even know what that means. You don't even know the definition of that, because you just keep moving and doing awesome, incredible things. And so we have a lot to learn from you, but let's start first with the origin story.
Yeah, sure. People are always curious about my name. That always gets people really interested. And funny enough, Howard and I are from the same town and from the same high school. So that's always a fun way to bond. I grew up in San Diego. My parents were both sort of Jewish hippies, hence the interest in sort of a different name. They both thought they had boring names, so they chose an interesting name for me. I hence chose boring names for my children, so I guess the cycle continuously repeats itself. Let's see, played a lot of sports growing up, not nearly as well as Howard, and maybe you did, Cher, but played a lot of sports, played volleyball, softball, tennis, basketball, but mostly was focused on academics, honestly. Ended up going to Columbia undergrad, worked on a lot of political campaigns, really thought I wanted to be a diplomat or run for office one day. Spent a lot of time in New Hampshire during the primaries in 2000, which was really exciting. Then stayed at Columbia, did a master's in international affairs at SEPA. Love people from all over the world and business from all over the world. Always really loved that. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do next. Interned in banking a lot, but then ended up working at McKinsey, which is one of the best things I've ever done for my career. Just really smart, hardworking people. And then worked in banking, worked at Lehman Brothers, and then went into sports. Didn't really realize one could work in sports. Spent 9 years at IMG working in sort of strategy and operations for consulting and sales and marketing. Got to travel all over the world. Always say that IMG was the most fun group of people I've ever worked with. You could go anywhere in the world and be invited to a really fun dinner party. And then spent 3 years at Verizon and Yahoo running business development in the sports vertical. So doing a lot of deals with the leagues and with betting partners. And joined the Fire 4 months ago now. So it's been very exciting.
And how are you doing? How's Chicago? How's the Fire? What are some of the initiatives that you have going on there that you're willing to share with us today?
Yeah, so moved to Chicago June 1st after living in New York since college. So I've been in New York for 23 years, moved husband, 2 kids, a dog, way more stuff than I ever realized once you have to pack it all up and move it. Who knew I had so many books and shoes and stuff like that? But it's been amazing. People in Chicago have been really warm and welcoming. It's funny, Chicago is a big city. I think we have about 10 million people, but it's an amazingly small town. My daughter found a boy in her class that she was interested in talking to. I don't know what the quite phraseology is. She's 12. And it turns out that the boy plays in one of our academy programs. And so it's just a very small world that way. And I met his mother, who's like a really lovely, and a doctor in Chicago. So people here have been really warm and welcoming.
So Ishwara, you have experience in leading teams, small SWAT teams, bigger teams. But did you have any experience specifically with soccer, I have on my Paris Saint-Germain outfit today in your honor until I get some free Chicago Fire
I know, I
swag.
have to
I'm
get
going
you
to wear
guys some. I'll have to
this.
mail it.
But what was that recruiting process? What drew you to this opportunity with MLS and the Chicago Fire?
Yeah, I've worked in sports for maybe 15 years now, and I consider myself really fortunate to get to work in sports. I mean, it's fun to do what you love, and I love every minute of what I do. I mean, I'm not saying it's not hard work, but it's fun. When I was thinking about leaving Verizon, I really wanted to be closer to the sport, closer to the game, where the passion was. And there's nothing people care more about than the sports teams they love. And that has been incredibly fun and rewarding. It's also a huge responsibility, right? People actually get genuinely angry at you when the team loses or when their favorite player gets traded or signed somewhere else. Like what you do matters to people.
And what are some of the initiatives that you're planning to institute? Tell us what an experience at your facility is like now and what you would imagine it to be maybe 3 to 5 years from now.
Yeah, so our single biggest initiative is to put more people in the stadium, quite frankly. We play in Soldier Field, where those who aren't from Chicago, it's where the Bears play. It's right on the lakefront here in Chicago. It's a beautiful location right in the center of the city, but it seats around 60,000 people, which is a lot for a soccer game.
Yeah.
And we are averaging a lot less than full crowds today. And we want to do better. We want to be more relevant. We want to make it a fun experience. We want to win more, all of those things. It takes time.
It takes time. And I alluded to this early in the conversation, is that while you have a ton of sports experience, like working within sports, sponsorship, media, all of that stuff, you didn't have the experience working in the front office of a major league team, period. But yet still you rise. You've taken your experiences straight to the top spot. Like, we're not just talking you're in the front office, you are the front office. So that's something that, like I said earlier, a lot of women need to emulate. Like, you knew you had the skills to do what you do. And so many of us say no before we even figure out whether we can. So what was it about you, or what is it that you focused on to get into this spot?
I mean, two things I would say is, you're right. Soccer's not my expertise. I could talk to you about a lot of sports. I wasn't a soccer fan before this job, but I knew it was a sport I could come to love. A bunch of really athletic people chasing a ball, scoring goals. I mean, I knew that was something I could really grow to love. I won't mention the sports I don't think I could grow to love, but you get where I'm going with this. I mean, I do love the athleticism and the speed and I think more than any other league in America, the international nature of soccer is something I really enjoy. And no, I've never worked at a team before. But I guess two things. One, a soccer team is a business like any other business. We have HR and legal and finance and all of those same functional areas. And two, the way that teams do make money are areas that I do have expertise in. It's still a people business. We still have to sell sponsorships. We're still trying to do media rights deals and all of those things. And I think fundamentally, Joe Mansueto, our owner, has sort of a best athlete strategy of hiring. Let's hire good people. And two, let's be realistic that the Chicago Fire is not where we want it to be. And if we expect things to change, we can't keep doing things the same way we've always done them.
I got to ask this. So do you watch Ted Lasso?
I'm convinced every single person I meet asks me that question. I have not seen Ted Lasso. I would admit that between the kids and the job, I don't watch much TV, but I read about 200 books last year. So I like to read more than I don't really watch much TV.
I get it. I get that. But please, not even,
right.
Even besides the connection point, that obvious connection point, it's a fantastic show. It really is, like, the emotional connection. It is so good. So we'll leave that there. I'm in shock, and I'm sure all the other 200 people had this similar response, but you will identify with it and you will actually enjoy that downtime when you watch it.
I like my books, but I'll consider it.
Okay.
So you bring all your experiences with you to the new job. IMG or Verizon or any of the other senior roles that you held. Who are some of your mentors? Who are some of your role models? Who do you bounce ideas off of when it's time for these huge career changes that you've just undertaken?
Yeah, I mean, I think you always have your inner circle. For me, my inner circle has always been my parents. I think my dad taught me, and then I'll get into the sports ones, I promise. My dad taught me sort of to love sports. He and I watched sports together for years. That father-daughter relationship at baseball games and stuff is precious. My mother has this unique ability to be, one, optimistic, but two, a fighter. So I think I got my fight probably from my mother. She's also a black belt, so she really does have a fight in her. And I have a really strong group of girlfriends. I think like that's something really important to have other women around you, even though they don't work in sports, they do other things. But I guess in terms of mentors too, I was fortunate enough to work for David Aberton at IMG for a really long time, and we have become really good friends. Then, Jeff Reese, who hired me at Yahoo, I think both gave me opportunities in a really unique way. Jeff hired me to run business development for Yahoo, sports, part of Verizon at the time, when I'd never done business development for anyone. I'd never been the external face of a brand. I had always been more of a chief operating officer, more internally focused.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And another former boss of mine, Andy Pierce from IMG, he once said to me, he goes, Ishwara, if you really want to grow and be an executive in sports, you have to be where the money is. You won't be able to rise being a COO. You have to bring in money to the company. Mm-hmm. So Yahoo and Verizon was really my first experience doing that. And it was pretty scary at first. I was like, wow, so what you spoke about earlier, Sharon, I'm like, wow, I've never been responsible for driving revenue into an organization. Mm-hmm. And I've never been externally facing, but I actually loved it. One, I like people. So, I learned that sales isn't really sales. It's telling a story to people who might be interested. And it's okay if they're not interested in your story, if it doesn't make sense for them. What is the argument that, what you really want is a quick yes? If you can't have a quick yes, a quick no is the second best answer. It's those long no's that really kill you.
I love that.
And I tend to be direct and blunt, and that's worked pretty well for me.
And would you say that would be part of your, because to win in what you're doing, and you as well, Howard, is all about relationships and building those relationships. What sort of strategies would you say that somehow along the way, as you've learned to do this, you get in front of the people, just like they said, follow the money, get in front of the people. What maybe 2 tips do you have around that accelerating relationship building and trust?
I mean, first, build authentic relationships, build relationships with people before you're looking to ask them to do anything. And, don't try to build relationships necessarily with people who are 5 layers above you, especially when you're earlier in your career. The people who are your age and your level will rise with you, presumably over time too. Right. And build relationships with people you actually enjoy. Nobody's going to help someone they met at a conference for 3 minutes when you handed them their business card. It doesn't work that way. Like the last conference I went to, I looked at the list of attendees and I didn't go try to talk to 100 of them. I had 3 of them I wanted to actually spend meaningful time with. And I got a chance to spend 45 minutes with one of them on a hike. Like that's when you build meaningful relationships, not in line at the omelet station at the conference. Though I did make a couple of friends at the omelet station. But what I'm doing, build authentic relationships with people where you're not asking them to do something for you right away. And 2, this is something I think I've learned as I've gotten older, and I just turned 40. So I think this has been a part of that too, is it was a big part of when I was interviewing for this job as well. I decided I would be me. I tend to have a big personality. I want what I want. I'm hard charging. And it's like, that's okay, right? I think men wouldn't be afraid to be that way or be afraid of the words that they would get called for being that way sometimes. But if you look at the people who are successful in business, that personality type is just fine. It's okay to be direct and blunt. I treat people with respect, but I don't have a high threshold for BS. Just tell me what you want. I'm never going to give you what you want if you don't tell me what you want. Sort of my philosophy.
Boom.
So I saw on social media, I believe it was a Sports Business Journal, Lake Tahoe Summit invites. I didn't get invited for the 53rd year in a row of my existence.
Oh, man, talking about that.
Take us into that weekend. Take us into that those rooms as we could be a fly on the wall.
Yeah. So I think there are criteria to get invited, and I'm sure you've exceeded all of them. So we'll have to talk to them about those things. But I think one of the reasons I was invited is I think if you won 40 under 40, you get invited, and that was something I wanted for years and years and years and years. Every year I would read it. I was like, I want to win this award. I'm naturally hyper competitive, and I did win, so that was really exciting. But what I really like about that conference in particular is that it's small. It's a lot fewer people. I think they had 120 people this year. They always do it at a really magical location, which, if you're going to travel for a conference, it's always nice to go somewhere good. And 3, it's really more focused on relationship building. We all go to these conferences where people talk at us all day. And it's like by the 12th panel of the day, you're like, oh, I have no idea what they're talking about, but I'm getting into my emails because I'm getting behind. Yeah. But they do a lot of activities where really the focus is just getting to know people. And to me and they do a lot of panels more on just general life skills and business skills. I think one of my favorite panels was talking about how when you multitask, you don't really do anything very well, which is funny because during the panel, I was like sitting there doing emails while he was talking. I was like, well.
So I'm openly campaigning to come to that sometime. I'm openly campaigning the Allen and Co guys to go out to that event also. You touched on it. We want to bring it back up, which is you have no problem walking tall in your presence and in the room and taking the seat. It's an admirable quality, but throughout your years in the respective companies that you've come from, certainly some snide comment, certainly some how do we put this, Ishwara, some non-receptive folks that did not do their D&I training. That
we're all working on being better. Yes.
Yeah, everybody's working on being better. Is it something that you confront, or is it just something that you just walk through and leave a wake in your behind? How do you approach kind of D&I, pre Me Too and now post, all the things that are going on right now, George Floyd and everything that's going on right now?
First, I would say that it's not just about walking in with confidence and owning the room. You have to be prepared. I mean, I work really hard to be prepared for the meetings I walk into, that I'm sure that I have. I mean, I'm very data driven, so I make sure that I have data and analysis. I'm going to disagree with you, but I'm going to do it based on data and facts and be better prepared than anybody else in the room. Okay. But also, I've learned as I've gotten farther along in my career that, you always expect to walk into a room knowing your negotiating position. That should be expected. But the good negotiators know the other person's position too, and what a win would look like for them walking in. But to your broader point, I mean, some of the stories I can tell you, more than being offensive, were actually just really funny. Like, I can't tell you the number of meetings I've been to where nobody knows where the ladies' room is. Or if they do know where the ladies' room is, they don't know the passcode to get in, and you have to go usually ask someone's assistant. You're like, look, I need to use the ladies' room. They're like, well, we don't know the passcode. I'm like, well, what are we going to do to solve this problem today? Because I'm going to go to the bathroom. So what do you suggest? Some of the remarks are really funny. I mean, my other favorite one is, who's watching your children right now? Like, oh no, did I leave them home alone? Oh my God. I mean, I don't think Howard people ask you that when you go to a business meeting most of the time.
No, they don't. And that's why I'm fascinated. And that's why Cher and I embrace these conversations, which is, I've been 6'8" since I was 16, 17 years old. Right. So people tend to kind of leave me alone. They might say something behind my back, but they're certainly not going to say some wildly sexist, wildly racist, wildly anti-Semitic comment in front of me, because they know that I'm an advocate for other groups, not just my own. I'm always fascinated how, normal-sized humans deal with the same, bullshit that we all have to go through. I've been lucky to be kind of inoculated from it because of my size, and people, are nervous to be around the highly educated, potentially argumentative Black guy.
So when we look at, the responsibility on your shoulders, you're walking in as a woman in the top spot in a male league. How does this also work its way into your plans for culture? Because I know that was one of your major things that you wanted to address and improve, especially, I mean, there's nothing like winning that helps things improve. But in addition to that, you can't control that all the time. That's the goal, but you can't. So what are you doing right now as far as incorporating DEI stuff and culture stuff to make it the culture you want it to be?
Yeah, I mean, and Howard, to your point, what's really funny is that I usually will not say something snarky in response. I usually figure that my actions and results speak louder than words. Yeah. It's funny, I was in a negotiation at Yahoo, and then I'll get to your point, Cher, for a while. And the person I was negotiating against was the CEO of a major company who I love. He's a great guy, and I won't name him. But he thought he was negotiating with my boss, And then after a few rounds of negotiation, he pulled me and said, he goes, "You're the one who actually really makes decisions around here, aren't you? You say you're checking with him, but really, he figured it out for himself, and we're still very good friends." So, he knew what he had to do to get the deal done, and it was to work with me. So,
love it.
But I mean, part of those sorts of things also come from having your boss, who is quite often in reality in the sports world, a non-diverse person, in the reality. Advocate for you. I mean, you can stand up and be tall, but the person behind you has to stand up and say, she's good, or he's good at what he does, and he's in charge, or he has my authority. But to your broader point, Cher, I mean, one of the big focuses I have here is on retaining and hiring good people, better people, more people, and people who come from all sorts of diverse backgrounds. And there's a few reasons for doing it. One is that it's the right thing to do, but two, it makes business sense for us, right? We want people to come to the stadium who come from all different backgrounds. And how can we reasonably sell tickets to them if we quite literally don't speak the language they speak at home, for example? So we're doing a number of different things. I mean, I think we're going to roll out, one of the first things I rolled out is that we're going to pay our interns, which a lot of sports organizations should be really ashamed that they don't do.
Yeah.
And because people should get paid for their work, but two, because it's very hard to attract diverse talent when you don't pay them, because for all the reasons we all know in society, the type of person who can accept an unpaid internship is not as diverse as the population at large. And two, we're going to do better on like maternity leave and paternity leave and parental leave and those sorts of things, because we want to be a place where people want to work and feel valued, but can also have a life, right? Everybody has something outside of work that matters to them. It's just different for everyone.
So here's my unapologetic pitch to you as the president, not Ishwara, my friend, which is we are working very closely with multiple leagues on a really small camera the size of this. You can put the camera, high fidelity, high profile cameras, 65 megapixels per frame at 30 frames per second to deliver broadcast quality. Our idea, even talking to some of your folks in New York City at the MLS, is what if we put the camera inside the post? What if we put it inside the post, to the right or the left of the goalie or right above the goalie's head? What if we put it on the corner so you can see the corner kick? What are some of the ways that we, small companies that are creating a bit of software, a bit of video as a service, should think about selling into a Chicago Fire and like-minded, digital savvy presidents like you?
Yeah, I mean, I always want to be first, right? For me, it's be exciting to pilot something first in MLS, to be the first team to do something. I think there's a variety of different ways to think about it. One is, can it generate revenue for me? But two, can it be new and innovative? Is it a sponsorable asset? And is it, perhaps the most important question, is it something I can actually do? Do I have the power to do what you want, or is it a league-wide decision? For us currently in MLS, we produce our own local games. So we could use an interesting technology in any of our local home games for sure.
Yeah, well, you heard it there. Then I heard that as a agreement, and I'll just send you the contract.
Send me the contract.
And we'll figure out all the details later. No, but that is the idea specifically. There was many reasons I want to talk to you today, but additionally, next trip to Chicago, I got to get there before it gets too cold, and sit down with you and your team, and we would find a way to pilot this, make this in your building, Soldier Field, the center of excellence for this, and do it at a cost neutral for you, and an opportunity for have digital, social, broadcast, and a couple other things that we're doing with a couple other leagues that I'm not allowed to announce quite yet, but you will be our showcase piece when the time is right, if you'll let us.
I'd love to learn more. I'd love to do things that are cool and innovative. So.
And that's another thing for you. Fan experience is a top on your list as well. So talk about some of the other initiatives as far as improving the fan experience for the club.
It's funny. I spent a lot of my time at Yahoo trying to improve the at-home fan experience. And now, I'm at a professional sports team where my goal is, of course, we want fans of all kinds, but we particularly want fans to come to games in person. That's, fundamentally our business. We've done a lot of different things to improve the fan experience. Soldier Field is challenging in some ways because it's not our building, right? Soldier Field is owned by the city of Chicago. But we've done a variety of things to make it a fun fan experience. We have something called Burnham Downs we do outside the field, which has different stations where you can eat and your kids can try kicking a ball. I think we're going to have a pub crawl there for our last home game in a couple of weeks. What I think makes soccer really exciting is that it's fast-paced, it's fun. I think when people come to games, they really do enjoy it. It's interesting because we talk to a lot of people looking at Howard's shirt there that, especially in a diverse place like Chicago, that say, I love soccer, but I'm a fan of Paris Saint-Germain, or I'm a fan of Chelsea. And to which I say, absolutely, you should keep rooting for them. But you're not going to go to their game next Saturday, probably. So why don't you come to our game? You can have multiple teams that you love. But it's a fun experience. Bring your friends, bring your kids. Just come out and have fun. That's really what we're trying to sell, both to people who love soccer and people who just are looking for something fun to do on a Saturday night.
And I think even from Toronto, we have the Toronto FC, and they have sold fun. Like that's something that people expect when they go to a game. So I absolutely get it.
Ishwara, Cher and I, with our guests, talk about the immersive media economy. Now, I've convinced myself of this. I don't know if I've convinced anybody else, though. But I think of this as a pinwheel. At the top of that kind of value chain is the leagues themselves. The leagues themselves at the top, content is king. They're creating, they're hiring the players, they're building the teams and building the dynasties. To the right, as you spin, are the broadcasters, both the international, domestic, and RSN broadcasters. Come all the way down. There's small companies like us, C360, that are enabling, that are taking risk. But if you keep going, now here come the big fangs, the transport companies, the 5G companies, the modem companies. Now, as this pinwheel starts spinning, it feels like we're at the edge of something really interactive, really immersive. And then you drop in gambling on top of that entire mix. You're going to have something fairly potent as all those particles accelerate at the same time. What is your take on how that ecosystem plays out over the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I think what we want more than anything as a team is for people to care and love us and interact with us in whatever way they want to interact with us. I mean, the most obvious way for them to interact with us is to come to a game or buy merchandise, but we also want the at-home viewing experience to be exciting. I mean, the reality is that the at-home viewing experience hasn't meaningfully changed since our parents watched TV. I mean, watching a baseball game on TV hasn't changed that much than when I was 10 years old watching with my dad on TV. And why is that? Why can't it be more fun? I mean, what I really want to do when I watch a baseball game is somehow, I mean, what I love about sports, and I think most of us love about sports, is watching with friends and interacting with friends and ribbing our friends who are rooting for the other team. Or what I love about watching games with my dad is that he knows all the players and the backgrounds and the stats. And, you know, but watching a game at home, especially when my kids refuse to watch with me, like, it's not fun, right? Sports is meant to be social. And so how can we make the experience social and fun? And I think all these different things are ways of doing that, be it statistics or fantasy or gambling or different views or being able to follow, like, what some of the new technology that I think is really cool is you can follow the game from the perspective of a specific player or a specific position, which is actually what I often do when I go to a game in person. As I'm trying to learn soccer, one of the things I do most often is follow a specific player for 5 or 10 minutes just to see what he does, so I can learn a little bit.
And I think that's what we're going to see, especially now in this digitally accelerated world. We're just going to see the way we consume sports as people, how we consume it is changing. But at the end of the day, it's all about the experience. So we're just going to continue to see this evolve rapidly over the next few years, which is exciting. One question that we ask each and every one of our guests is just this one simple question. And it's actually not as simple as you think, but I'll let Howard take it from here.
So, Ishwara, what was the best day of your professional career and why? And what was the worst day of your professional career and why? And what did you learn from both of those days?
I think the best day of my professional career was when I was at Yahoo closing the big deal with MGM. You know, our team and I had worked for many late hours and many late nights across all these different areas of the business: legal, finance, product, engineering, marketing. And it was an incredibly long document. We were, like, you know, on the floor in the conference room eating Thai food when it finally got signed. But what I think I really learned from it is when we were looking to do a deal with Yahoo, we met with all of the different major betting companies that you could imagine. And, you know, we ended up doing a deal with the people we liked the most. I mean, I think that you realize that business is deals, but ultimately it's still people. And once you do a deal, you still have to work together. The hardest day in my professional career was a day that at one of my previous employers, when my boss was let go. That was incredibly hard because he had been a real mentor to me, and I had really looked up to him, and he had been really good to me. I think the lesson in that, I think more than anything, was just humility, that sometimes the business world is unfair and unjust and unreasonable, and bad things happen to good people, and that once we are in a position of power, we owe it to people to give them a second chance and to listen to their story, be a little less judgmental.
Not bad for two Patrick Henry Patriots. That's our high school in San Diego. A handful of some successful folks came out of Patrick Henry High School. And at the top of that list is Ishwara. And we thank you for joining us today. If you're not following Ishwara across social media platforms, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's not only the positivity of what's going on in sports and media, but it's a peak to get to see your beautiful kids and your family from time to time. So from a big fan here, please keep that up. as we are cheering for you from the sidelines, for sure.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us as well. Like, I mean, you really brought the energy and the experience and just that, listen, forget about imposter syndrome, because you can do what you want when you bring the experience and you come prepared. And that's what you talked about. That's one of the things that you really impressed upon me, is the way you were prepared, the way you were ready for those conversations, the way that you were ready for those meetings, and you knew what you were doing, and you did it. You've been watching Icons and Insights powered by C360. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode.